Hello, I'm Anna, the Yarn Randomizer, and I've been away for a bit, and I wanted to try to squeeze in a recording before I take off for a knitting retreat up in Cleveland, the Twisted River knitting retreat. Oh, I can't remember if that's the official name, but it's from the Harps and Thistles yarn shop up there. And so yeah, I'm going to try to get this recording together, get it out. Probably tomorrow on Friday when I go up for the retreat, but hopefully very soon. And I wanted to welcome new and also returning viewers. Yeah, I've been away. For those who are returning, I've been away for a little bit, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry. I am original.annasender on Instagram, and I am the Yarn Randomizer on Ravelry, and you can find those links in the notes below. And then also, yeah, the usual like and subscribe if you like this. I'll remind you again towards the end. It's helpful as far as kind of helping more folks get exposed to the channel and everything, and help more, so I can get this out to more people and everything. So I appreciate that. So I have been very occupied over the past about 6 weeks. My mother, she did pass away earlier, just about a week and a half ago, and we had known this was coming for about the past year and a half, and I've got to spend a lot of good time with her. I spent a lot of great time with her before that, but got to spend a lot of extra time with her over the past year and a half. And then I spent most of the past 6 weeks there with her before she passed. And I was thinking how much she liked my YouTube recordings and stuff, so I want to continue on doing that. She was a great mom, and I'll miss her. And I'm going to keep recording because I know that's what she'd want me to do. So all right. First finished object, and you may notice in the background there is a small dog named Odo who is walking around. Hopefully he'll settle down here shortly, but he was my mother's dog, and so he's now with us here, and he's a really good dog. He's a real cutie. Okay, so first finish object is my Yarn Randomizer project number 13 for the year, and it is a small round coaster. It's a free pattern, and I used some leftover yarn that I had to do this, combined a couple of different yarns together. And it's a circular knit. You cast on from the center and work your way out. And I would say my main comment about this would be, I think it would be easier, might be easier with double pointed needles than it was doing it magic loop. It really felt like I had to muscle it around using magic loop. And then also the other situation is, I think that, it uses a knit front and back. So it's basically working out in a garter stitch. And anybody who's done garter stitching around knows you have to kind of switch between doing knits and purls as you go along. And the way they were doing increases was the knit front and back. And I think that knit front and slip the next stitch might slip knit. If you've never done this, there's a way to do a knit front, and then instead of knitting into the back, you slip the back instead, and it provides a smoother increase. And I think it might have, if I make this again, I'll definitely do that. But I like it. I keep it under my glass that you see back there, and I'm really happy with the colors and the way it came out. Let's see now. Oh, and I'm knocking things over. All right, the next thing is I finished my Musselburgh hat, and I know lots of people have knitted these, and it's always interesting. If you want a hat fast, this is not the way to make a hat. It definitely takes longer, but the results are so nice, because for anybody who doesn't know, first I'll try it on, and then I'll show you what the deal is with it. But I am super happy with it. Now the interesting thing was I used all of the skein of yarn that I had except for maybe 1.5 grams of yarn, which I have here. So this was how much yarn that I had left. I kind of expected the hat to be a little bit longer, but I did make the adult medium. But I'm absolutely thrilled with how it ended up producing this striping effect with the yarn. This is from Blue Barn Fiber, their September Aspens colorway. And also, I don't know if you've watched it from previous podcasts, when I was knitting this yarn before blocking, it was looking a little more cord-like, I think. But now after soaking and blocking, it looks very smooth. You can see how regular the stitches look, and it just turned out so nice. So I'm really happy with that. And the secret to this, for anybody who hasn't knit a Musselburgh, is it's really just one long tube that you stuff into itself, and then you can fold up. And so the nice thing is you get extra layer. You got double layer everywhere, and then you get 4 layers of knitting around your ears. So it's a great way to knit a hat. Great vanilla knitting, and it really turned out great. And so yeah, I highly recommend the pattern. Again, all the information will be down below. Okay, I had to do a little cut there. All right, so the next finish object is Yarn Randomizer project number 10, which is these mock cable socks, and you should be able to see the detail there. And I'm really pleased with how these came out. Again, these are toe up. I almost always knit toe up. And I worked hard to get them to completely match as far as the striping went. And I used a contrast heel and basically toes and heels, another color of Kroy and everything. And I think they turned it out wonderful. The funny thing here was my contrast yarn, I actually ran out on the last heel that I was doing. So if you can see it very lightly, you can see what I did was I used some of the gray that was in the self-striping yarn to finish up the heel. So it's relatively disguised, but I did run out, but that's okay. I think they turned out really great, and they fit really well. I have a picture of me wearing them in my project, and highly recommend the pattern. And I Kroy is always an interesting knit. It's fun to knit with yarn. It's a little plumper than your standard fingering and produces a really nice result. But those little mock cables are just turned out beautiful. All right, let's see. The next thing, going after one thing after another here, is the Ophidia Hat. This is Yarn Randomizer project number 6. And this was using some 100% baby alpaca yarn that I picked up in Peru, and wanted to make something that had sort of a South American flavor to it. And I do like how this turned out. This is a free pattern, and this is a great pattern for beginning stranding color work. It was very, you don't have a longer float than 3 stitches in here. It has a very aggressive reduction on the top, which is kind of interesting, and I have not blocked this yet. So it should, as far as the stitches, smooth out a little bit when I soak it and block it. And of course, required thing for yarn with knitting projects with floats is to show off the floats. And so here are the floats on the inside, and you can see how those turned out. I'm really pleased with it. And it's, again, not binding at all. It's nice and stretchy. It takes a little practice when you're doing floats to ensure that you're allowing enough slack so that they don't kind of bind things up. And this hat worked out great for my husband. If I'm talented and patient, I might insert a picture to show that off. But I'll put this on right here. It's really big on me because my husband has a very large noggin, as he would say. But yeah, very pleased with how it turned out. And because it's 100% baby alpaca, It is unbelievably soft. Let's see, my hair is going to be messed up the rest of the time. That's okay. All right, so that's the Ophidia hat, and I think that was everything. Yeah. And yeah, again, highly recommend the pattern. All these will be linked below. And then I think the next thing that I had was for this yarn retreat that I'm going to. It's Ann Hansen is doing 3 classes at the yarn retreat, 2 on Saturday and 1 on Sunday morning. And she's a designer who has some really beautiful patterns and everything. And to my embarrassment, I had not knitted one of her patterns yet. And so I thought, you know, if I'm going to go attend this retreat, I should really knit one of her patterns. And so what I did was, while I was out there with at my mom's place, I went to the local yarn shop there, Castaway Yarns in Columbia, Missouri, and I picked up a ball of Melmerby sock to make this. So this is not a yarn randomizer project. This is a yarn project specific, you know, had a goal for. And so what I made was this Mendenhall scarf, and I used as much of the skein as possible, but it's just a beautiful textured scarf. And so you can see it there. Twisted stitches. Let's see, I think this is the side that's open. I need to show you the twisted. That's the wrong side that I'm showing you. And here is the right side. And you can see the twisted stitches there. And it just turned out so beautifully with this tonal Melmerby yarn. Really nice result. And I used as much as possible. I think, again, I got down to maybe 1.5 grams left of the yarn that I didn't use. And it's a simple scarf. This is a little bit longer than what the pattern calls for. But I was really pleased with the results. And so turned out really nice. And so I will get to go to the retreat having knit at least one Ann Hansen pattern. So that way I can be not embarrassed that I haven't done one of her patterns before. So, and it was actually, so speaking of that, this pattern was a really great pattern. You know, this looks really fancy, but fundamentally it's just a twisted rib with some garter sections there, and you're doing yarn over increases to get the lace. And it was completely memorizable. I was able to memorize the pattern and not even look back at the instructions after the first section of this. And it was easy to keep straight, easy to correct when I made a little mistake somewhere. And I would highly recommend it. It was really a great way to use up a tonal skein. And maybe it might work with a speckled skein. I would say that a variegated skein might not, where you might lose the pattern with a variegated skein. But something tweedy or speckly, lightly speckled, or a tonal skein would look really great in this. And it is like the Melmerby. I've obviously blocked this already, and the Melmerby just came out very soft. It's very nice. And so I'm really happy with the result on that. All right. Next thing, finally, as far as finished objects, and this is technically not a finished object, but this is the monthly JimmyBeans wool shawl, and I finished the month of April, and that's this latest section here. So and it's all wrinkly because I had it stuffed in my bag, but you can see it's a fade, and I finally have some more color in there, and it really significantly pooled. You can see it, how it did that across this section. But that's the latest section of that. So I'm waiting. It mails out sometime between the 25th and 30th of each month. So I'll be getting that coming up here for May, and we'll see what the colorway is and everything. I think this was called, Vintage Grello was the colorway. And that's all in, oh my goodness, I'll have it linked. This is in Merino Single from, I think, La Bien Amie. Beautiful stuff. But that'll all be linked below. So I think that's all of the finished objects, and now we'll move on to, I've only got 2 works in process to talk about, because all 3 of the sweaters, my Lento and the motorcycle sweater, which is staring at me and making me feel guilty, and my project that I'm doing with my friend, are all kind of waiting. I'm waiting till I come back from this retreat. I just didn't want to dive back into them during this past week here. But I have been working on my yarn randomizer project number 3 from the year, and that is my Swanky Chic. And let's see if I can pull this up here. Oh, excuse me. I've gotten I'm into the 6th colorway here. So show this whole thing, and it's ending up nice and long. And so you can see that starting with the red, a gray, a kind of a green, a really pronounced blue, and then a nice warm kind of brown there. And now into this really warm yellow that I'm working on. And that is the 6th colorway. I've got 2 more minis to use here, and then I'll be done with it. But at this point, what happens is I work the main color in the lace. I separate each section with this Surrey alpaca. I've got the contrast color in the lace, and then I stripe them together, and I'll continue that alternating on the way out and stuff. So this has been a really easy pattern to do, and I'm hoping it'll be a really nice result. Should be nice. It's turning out nice and long. There's half and half, and so it's got 2 more full sections to go. And so there'll be plenty of length there when I block it and everything. So it's getting close to about 70% complete, and it's been a nice knit. But I will say that I can't say I enjoy knitting the Surrey on its own. I've done a lot of carry-alongs of Surreys and mohairs, but knitting that single strand of lace weight Surrey, and I imagine with mohair it'd be the same, seeing what you're doing isn't always the easiest thing going on. All right. Now, next one is my yarn randomizer project number 4. And this was originally, I was going to had planned to make socks with this, but after showing off my hitchhikers in a couple of my shawl retrospective, I was really thinking that this would make an interesting hitchhiker. And so you can see that in progress here. I am 28 teeth into this, and you can see I finally got a little bit of pooling there. You can see it's interesting because it pulls the gray and then it pulls the red and yellow together. When it does, we'll see if there's any more that happens. But I love this. It reminds me of a campfire. Now the name of this colorway is Eye of Sauron, but I just love it. It's like flames and ashes and everything, and it's just turning out great. I think it was a good choice to make a hitchhiker with it. Now, I have a spreadsheet that I have that lets you know kind of how far along you are on a hitchhiker depending on how many teeth you are. And so when I finish the 29th tooth in 4 more rows, that'll be right around the 50% halfway done point for the shawl. And the idea will be I'll check to see if I have at least half the yarn left to see if I'll be able to make all 42 teeth. And so we'll see how that's tracking. I've decided to leave it, I could have checked it along the way, but I'm waiting till I hit the 50% mark to check. And so I'll check it there and see how it comes out. Yeah, and so it's been a really nice, and this is just such a nice, easy knit to do and everything. And I've been alternating working on teeth on this and sections on my Swanky Chic shawl, kind of back and forth. They're racing to the finish line. They should finish almost at the same time because I'm trying to work it out that way. And so that's it for finished objects and works in progress. And I did need to explain for folks who are new, the Yarn Randomizer, the name, and the name of these projects being Yarn Randomizer project number whatever for the year. this will come up later as I show some of the next things that I'm going to be working on, is that I pick my yarns randomly, and I have a big bucket full of wooden chips with numbers on the chips that correspond to the different yarns in my stash, and I have my husband pull chips to decide kind of what yarn I'm going to try to work with next. And that's everything in my stash is documented. If you go to my Ravelry page, you'll see 100% of my stash, and all of that has a corresponding marker in my yarn randomizer. So so that's how I pick these. Now, the next thing I'm going to go through is some acquisitions, some yarns that I've picked up, and to earn the right for a yarn to be in my stash, to be pickable, I have to use up at least twice that much yardage for it to enter. So the idea is I'm squeezing down the amount of stash that I have. But I'm not restricting myself on purchases, but I may come up with a rule at the end of the year that if I haven't earned my purchases of yarn for the year, that I have to de-stash to even things out at the end of the year. We'll see how painful that might look, but we'll see. It's just all, for me, it's kind of a game in the way to manage my stash. So I have a few acquisitions to go over. So the first one is, I ordered this sock set from Les Garçons, and I just really liked the colors in this skein of sock yarn and the little contrast. I thought this would make a fascinating pair of socks. And this is their BFL sock. And so the main color is Melmerby. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And the mini is Max's Khaki. And so, and this was originally for an event, but they had these for sale on their site, and I just really liked, just treated myself to a sock set as if I needed more sock yarn, but really happy with that. So that was one addition, and that goes, I have to earn it to be able to add it. The next one was, I found this self-striping yarn, Lollipop Yarns, and again, information about these will all be down below. And they had this is a special anniversary self-striping yarn for JimmyBeans wool anniversary, and it was on sale, and I'll provide a link below. So I decided to pick it up, and there's some really great photographs of socks done in this self-striping yarn, but I just loved it because there's little rainbows in there, little solid areas in there, speckled gray areas and everything. And so it has some really beautiful self-striping pattern to it that I really liked. So I couldn't resist kind of picking that one up. Let's see, next. Okay, I have a confession. So I watch Supercross motorcycle races with my husband. We are avid, we're riders, and we like to watch racing as well. Now there's a racer that I really like, Joe Shimoda, and he's been doing really well, but he had an injury this year. But I thought, you know, what I should do is, because I'm a fan, I thought I could make him a hat. And he is riding on Team Kawasaki, which is green and black and white. But I thought it would be interesting. I got this skein of worsted from Blue Barn Fiber that had this really bright green in there with the black. And I thought this would be a great skein to make the 1898 hat with as a gift to send him as a fan, which is kind of embarrassing, but yeah. So that's my plan with this yarn. I'm going to figure out when I'm going to do that. And that won't be part of randomizing since this is strictly a gift, but I still have to pay for it with yardage out of my stash. But I've made the 1898 hat maybe 9 or 10 times, and I highly recommend the pattern. It's a really fun pattern to knit. It's a free pattern, and I'll link it below, and you can see all the ones that I've made in my list of projects and everything. But this will produce a very interesting result, I think, with this bright single section of the bright green there in the yarn. So there's that one. All right, and then I think while I was out at my mother's in Missouri, I visited Castaway Yarns a couple of times. One was to get that skein of Malabrigo that I got to make the shawl. And then the other thing I picked up was she had this Quaker Hill from Plymouth yarn on sale. So this is a blend of 50% Highland wool, 50% alpaca, and it feels as nice as it sounds. It just feels really nice. And so I like this gray. And I picked up 2 skeins of Emma's yarn in this marvelous mohair to go with it. And this colorway is Jackie O to go with this. This colorway for the, colorway for the Quaker Hill, if I can find it. Oh, light gray. Nothing fancy there, but it's Jackie O for the mohair. So I think I have a vest pattern that I like the look of that will combine these two and I think have a really interesting and comfy result. But I have to earn this first. I'm trying to think. And those are the main ones that I have to earn. I actually paid for the Malabrigo. I track my yarn usage as I go along through the year, and I paid for my skein of Malabrigo in yardage already. But as it turns out, we'll get to, I've got enough earned yardage that I can take one of my yarns that I say is in layaway, waiting for me to use twice as much yardage, ready to roll into my stash, into the yarn randomizer, and I'll show that in a moment. But I had a few other acquisitions here. Let's see. Oh yes. I thought I had the bags written down here, but basically I picked up a couple of, 3 things, yeah. So I picked up this really nice bag from Castaway Yarns in Columbia, Missouri as well. And I really like this. This is a nice, with leather handles. It's got this nice plaid. It sits nice and open. It's a great bag to work out of and to carry multiple things in. So I really, really liked it and picked it up there. And see, it's got to have a tag, Shaggy Baggy. But it was available there at Castaway Yarn in Columbia. And then there was a pre-order. Let's see, where do I have that? Oh yeah, here it is. There was a pre-order of a bag from StolenMinutes on Etsy. And I just like the fabric so much that I felt like I needed it. It's a nice big bag, but it has these cats and books. And I thought it was so cute. And it's got her standard features in there. She has an ring that can be opened to hold stitch markers or a variety of other things. And she has her traditional striped lining in here. And I just liked it so much I had to order it, and so it finally arrived this past week. And so I highly recommend her bags and her shop. She does great work. And then while I was at my mother's, one of the things I needed was a little extra light for when I was knitting. So I did order one of these things from Amazon, and I'll link the one that I ordered. But it was very useful to have for seeing what I was doing there while I was at my mom's. Okay. So I talked about my yarn budget. I have to use up yardage to be able to add more yarn to my stash. And, oh no, you gotta be quiet there, Odo. I know. I'm talking and I'm not paying attention to you. Oh, it's all right. Okay, just have a little more patience with me here. All right, so I earned enough yardage that I could add one of the yarns I've had in layaway into my stash. And what I'm adding into my yarn randomizer is this beautiful mini DK in a colorway called Hopkinsville Goblin from Dye Mad Yarns from here in Ohio. It's a Ohio yarn dyer. And so I know folks have seen me show this when I purchased it earlier on the episodes. Now it's going to get assigned a number and put into the bucket with everything else. So it has a chance to be pulled now for that. Speaking of that, so the next thing to talk about, and I think this will come down to it. Yes, the next thing to talk about is the next yarn randomizer picks. So the next few yarn randomizer picks, I have 4 picks to go over. And so we'll go over those right now. So my husband pulled number 289 out of the yarn randomizer, and that was some leftover stitched together frugal fingering that I had in this really kind of neon-y kind of yellow color, yellow-green color. And I think what I'm going to do with this, given it some thought already, is I'm going to make some little ornamental stars to go with a garland that I built. I did JimmyBeans wool craft event for Christmas, which was making a bunch of little things like these sweaters, these little hats, little scarves, and let's see, is there anything else? Oh yeah, I think there's little socks in here too. Hold on for a moment. Oh, mittens, little mittens, so you can see those. And then there should be a little sock or two in here also. I'm finding all the mittens, hats. I don't know if I'm going to find a sock. Oh my goodness, you got to see the sweater. Little sweater. And so this I've got a cord to make a garland with here. And I can't believe I'm not finding a sock, because there should be plenty of socks in here. Oh, I think I found one. Yes, there we go. Even little socks. Ta-da! And the idea will be to make these little puffy stars out of this yarn and add them along the garland to go along with these little pieces, I think is my current plan, subject to change, but that's the current plan. All right, and then the next pick after that was number 62. And again, sometimes the yarn randomizer can be a little bit, I don't want to say mean, but a little bit perverse, in that it picked another yellow leftover yarn out of my inventory. And this is a Cascade, I think, yes, Cascade 220 fingering that I had. And I look at this yarn, you know what this yarn reminds me a lot of, if you can see the texture of it, it reminds me a lot of the Shetland fingering yarns and stuff in that loose ply, woolly, that loose woolly ply. And I looked around and I hemmed and I hawed, and I found what I thought might be interesting, because there's, again, not a ton of this left, but enough to do something with. I saw these wrist warmers that were these, I think it's stone, did I have it listed here? Yeah, I don't have it listed here, but I'll link it below. It's these little lace wrist warmers that I thought I would go ahead and make with this yarn. I think they suit the pattern well, and I think they'll come out really interesting. And again, subject to change, but that's that one. So getting leftovers picked, so I keep having my husband pick numbers because I feel like I want something a little more substantial. And so the next number was 249. And that ended up being this single skein of another skein of Kroy Socks. And these are the Mexicali Stripes. There's some really neat colors in there. And I bought this ball of yarn for a very specific purpose, and that was to make a hat band for my husband. So the idea is I'm still noodling about how to do this, whether to make something narrow and braid it, or make something about 1 inch wide. I don't know, I'm thinking about it. But the idea is to go on to, and so to illustrate, the idea would be to go on to a hat like this. Now this might look, this looks very official, but this is the kind of hat that my husband has more hats. We've got a whole shelf dedicated to hats. And so this is just one of them. And the idea is, instead of this plain green ribbon that's around here, is to make something a similar width with this yarn to put on this hat. And so that's the goal there. So that's what this one is. So this will be, so these are yarn randomizer projects 14, 15, and 16 respectively. And it's still little things. So I thought I'll have him pick one more number and see what we get. And so let me find that number. As it turns out, we got number 349. And that ended up being a yarn from a yarn dyer called Unplanned Peacock, and it's this black. Now, I bought this to go with some more yarn from Unplanned Peacock, and so I will show those. It was a set of minis, a white, a little variegated one. Oh, let's see if I can stack all these here. A yellow, oh boy, blue, oh, it's gonna stay, maybe. Oh, no. And then a magenta. So the idea was to use these colors, these colorways. Let's see if I can gather those back up. Let's see if I can hold those all together. So there's the 4 to go. There's the 4 to go together. There we go, we try it that way. And the idea is to use those 4 and one more color. I had a nice orange in my stash. Oh boy, let's see, in my stash. And I really like this orange to go with these. I felt like it really goes well with that yarn. And the idea is to use these 6 colors along with this black to do an On the Spice Market shawl by Melanie Berg. So that's the plan for this yarn. So that was a substantial pick out of my yarn randomizer. So those are all, you'll see all of those in my queue listed with patterns associated with them and everything. So those were the picks for this time. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Other than that, that's everything that's been going on over the past kind of 6 weeks. And I have all kinds of things I want to do. So I want to get this episode wrapped up. And then, the more other things coming is I have a final shawl retrospective to do. I want to continue my stash tour of my Start Go Hit my regular fingering weight yarns. I got to do that in a 2-part because I got a lot of fingering yarn. And then I want to do a little instructional video on how to start self-striping yarn exactly where you want to on a toe-up sock. There are a couple of different cast-ons for toe-up socks, but one lends itself perfectly to be able to start exactly where you want. And there's a neat little trick to it, and I want to show that. I also want to do I think I want to do a little comparison of the knit front back to the knit front slip back to show how that looks different. And I also want to do, this I really want to show you because you can really see it here on the Swanky Chic shawl. I want to show the difference between doing a make one left and right and using a yarn over to do the same thing. Now I want to show you, if you look close, this is using, this is a double reduction running up the center here, and you can see the length of that. Well, this here, if you can see close, how there's almost an alternating of big stitches and small stitches, because this is using a make one left and right on each side of this spine, and it's scavenging the yarn from the previous row and causing that stitch to tighten up. And so you can see that it looks a little shorter. This line looks a little shorter than the line with the decreases. And I think, in some cases, you'd be better off using the yarn over and forming the stitch the same way with that yarn over, twisting it the right direction, than you would pulling up yarn from the previous row. But I want to build a contrast so you can see what the difference is there. And then, and there's some Ravelry tips I want to do as well. There's a way of looking for patterns associated with the yarn. And the little secret is that there's a technique that shows you patterns that use a particular yarn, but they'll show you ones that are in your favorites list first before they show you just any pattern on Ravelry that uses the yarn. And it's really handy. And I want to walk through that on a little recording. And I think that's it. Oh my goodness. So I kind of swept through that as quick as I could. And if you please like and subscribe if you're interested. And thank you for coming back if you're coming back. And and thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And I think I'll leave Sleeping Dogs Lie back there. I'll let Otis, but maybe I'll stick in a picture of Odo here somewhere as well. I need to learn how to do that, stick in the pictures. And so at some point I will do that. But thank you for watching, and enjoy your knits.